Welcome to my channel, USA Battle Zone. Today's story isn't just another tale of courage, it's a story of loyalty, sacrifice, and a bond that transcends the battlefield. So grab your seat, turn up the volume, because what you're about to hear will stay with you for a long time. It all began in the mountains of northern Afghanistan, a place where silence wasn't peace, it was warning. The cold wind carried whispers of danger, and the rocky valleys hid more than just shadows. Lieutenant Sarah Collins, one of the few female Navy SEALs, moved like a ghost through the terrain. Her partner, a Belgian Malinois named Ranger, followed close behind. They had been together for 4 years. 4 years of deployments, missions, and memories that only soldiers and their dogs could understand. Ranger wasn't just a dog, he was her partner, her protector, and sometimes, her only reason to keep going. Their mission that night was simple, or so it seemed. A Black Hawk helicopter, carrying critical intel, had gone missing 3 days ago. No radio contact, no distress signal, nothing. Command feared the worst. An ambush, maybe a crash. Sarah and her team were tasked with reconnaissance, find the wreck, recover the data, and if possible, bring the soldiers home. The team moved at dusk, 7 operators and 1 dog, crossing through jagged cliffs and dusty plains. Hours turned into silence. Then, around midnight, the wind shifted, carrying something faint. Burned oil, smoke, metal. Got something, Sarah whispered into her mic. Ranger's ears perked up. He began pulling forward, his nose twitching, eyes focused. They followed him. And then, there it was. Half buried in the sand, the tail of a helicopter, twisted, scorched, and silent. The moonlight reflected off its broken frame like a ghost of war. But something felt wrong. Where's the perimeter security? One of the SEALs muttered. No footprints. No drag marks. It was as if the crash had happened, and then, the world just forgot. Sarah raised her hand, the signal for silence. Ranger's fur stood on end. He growled. Low, deep, primal. Movement, Sarah whispered. The team fanned out, weapons ready, eyes cutting through the shadows. But there was nothing. No enemy. No noise, just the sound of the wind scraping over metal. All right, Sarah said softly. Let's move in. They approached the wreck. The helicopter's hull was torn open. Wires hung like vines. One of the rotors lay buried in the sand. Sarah's flashlight swept through the interior. Blackened walls, scorch marks, bullet holes. Then, she froze. Inside, on the floor, were helmets. 5 of them, lined up in a perfect row. And beneath each one, a folded American flag. The air grew still. Someone was here, Sarah whispered. Someone who cared. Her team spread out, securing the perimeter. But Sarah couldn't move. She knelt down beside the flags, her heart pounding. She knew the protocol. No one on board would have had time for this. Not during a crash. Not during a firefight. This wasn't random. This was ritual. Ranger whined softly, his nose pressed against one of the flags. Sarah's eyes softened. Easy, buddy, I know. Then, Ranger jerked his head toward the cockpit. He barked once, short and sharp. Sarah followed. The cockpit was worse. Glass shattered, controls melted, a faint smell of blood. But on the pilot's seat, there was something strange. A notebook, torn, burned around the edges, but still legible. She opened it carefully. The first page read, "If you're reading this, it means we didn't make it." The handwriting was shaky. Mail. A soldier's script. Sarah flipped the pages, scanning quickly. The journal belonged to Captain Daniel Reeve, the pilot. He had survived the crash with his crew. But they were surrounded. Trapped for 3 days. No extraction. No comms. Just a handful of ammo and fading hope. The last entry read, "They're gone. I'm alone now. I buried them with what I had left. If anyone finds this, tell my wife I kept my promise, to bring them home, one way or another." The words blurred in Sarah's eyes. She shut the notebook and whispered, "You did good, Captain. You did damn good." But then, Ranger barked again. Louder, urgent. He started pawing at the floor beneath the cockpit. Sarah crouched, shining her light where he scratched. The sand there looked disturbed, like something had been buried. "Guys," she called, "over here." They dug, slowly, carefully, and within minutes, they uncovered a metal case. Army grade. Locked. Sarah wiped the dust away. The tag read, "Top secret, eyes only." She took a deep breath. This must be the intel command wanted. They lifted the case. Heavy, cold, silent. Extraction in 10, her comms buzzed. But before she could respond, Ranger growled again. This time, not at the ground. At the darkness. Sarah looked up, and saw eyes. Dozens of them, glinting in the shadows. "Contact," she shouted. Gunfire erupted. Echoes bounced off the canyon walls. Ranger lunged forward, teeth bared, his growl cutting through the chaos. Sarah fired, moving low, covering her team. Bullets sliced the air. Sparks flew off metal. It was an ambush. Local insurgents, drawn by the noise, the wreck, or maybe, the case. The fight lasted minutes, but felt eternal. When the dust settled, the silence returned, heavy and cruel. "Everyone okay?" Sarah asked. "Two wounded. Nothing fatal." "Ranger." The dog limped toward her. One ear torn, blood on his paw, but still standing. Still guarding her. Sarah knelt, pressing her forehead against his. "You're a damn hero," she whispered. They loaded the wounded, secured the case, and marked the coordinates for recovery. Before leaving, Sarah turned back one last time, toward the 5 helmets and folded flags. She saluted. "Rest easy, boys," she said quietly. "We'll finish what you started." Back at base, the data inside the case turned out to be more critical than anyone expected. It held satellite footage, mission codes, and evidence of a massive weapons transfer between insurgent forces. Because of that discovery, dozens of lives were saved, and the mission was declared a success. But Sarah didn't feel like it was one. Not yet. A week later, she returned to the crash site. Alone, except for Ranger. The mountains were quiet again, untouched by war or fire. She stood where the helicopter once lay, now reduced to ash and silence. In her hands, she carried 5 small plaques. Each bore a name, the crew of the Black Hawk. She placed them in a row, just as the helmets had been. Ranger lay beside her, watching, as if he understood the weight of the moment. The wind moved softly through the canyon, and for a second, Sarah swore she heard voices, laughter, chatter, the sound of rotors slicing the air. Ghosts of the brave. She closed her eyes. "You're home now," she whispered. Ranger nudged her hand, his eyes gentle. And for the first time in a long time, Sarah smiled. But fate wasn't done with them. 3 months later, during another mission in the same region, their convoy was hit. An IED tore through the lead vehicle. Sarah was thrown clear, alive, but barely conscious. When she woke, the world was fire and dust. She tried to move. Pain seared through her ribs. And then she saw him. Ranger. Lying beside her. Still breathing, but weak. His vest torn, his eyes half closed. She crawled toward him, dragging herself through the dirt. "Stay with me, buddy. Please, stay with me." He lifted his head just enough to lick her hand, then rested it down again. She could hear the evac chopper in the distance. Help was coming. But time was cruel. Sarah held him close, whispering the same words she had whispered countless nights on patrol. "I've got you. You're safe. You're my good boy." When the medics arrived, she didn't move. She just kept holding him. By the time they pulled her away, Ranger was gone. Months later, after recovery, Sarah stood once more on American soil, at Arlington National Cemetery. The sky was clear, the air still. She wore her dress blues. On her chest, her seal trident. And in her hand, Ranger's collar. The ceremony was small but dignified. Her commander spoke softly. Ranger saved 4 operators in his career. He completed 32 missions. And he never once failed his partner. Sarah stepped forward, voice trembling. "He wasn't just a dog," she said. "He was a soldier. He was family." As taps played in the distance, she laid the collar beside a stone engraved with his name. Ranger, K9 Unit, faithful until the end. The tears came then, silent, unstoppable. But when she looked up, she saw something, a hawk, circling high above. And in that moment, she felt it. Peace. Weeks passed. The military cleared Sarah for light duty, but her spirit wasn't ready to move on. Until one morning, she got a message from her CO. "Collins, new assignment. Report to the kennels. She frowned. Kennels. When she arrived, she saw a group of handlers, each working with new recruits, young dogs, full of energy and mischief. "Lieutenant," said the trainer, "we thought you might like to meet someone." He led her to a small fenced yard. Inside sat a puppy, small, golden brown, with curious eyes. "His name's Scout," the trainer said. "Ranger's last litter. Born right before your last deployment." Sarah froze. The puppy looked up at her, and for a moment, she swore she saw it. That same spark, that same loyalty. She knelt, holding out her hand. Scout trotted over, tail wagging, and placed his paw in her palm. And just like that, she smiled again. Years later, when Sarah retired, she and Scout lived quietly near the coast of Maine. Some nights, she'd sit by the fire, looking out at the ocean, the sound of waves mixing with old memories. The medals on her shelf gleamed softly in the light. Beside them, Ranger's collar, and the notebook from the crash site. Every now and then, she'd flip it open. The last line always made her heart tighten. "Tell my wife I kept my promise, to bring them home." She would whisper back, "You did, Captain. And I kept mine." Scout would rest his head on her knee, and she'd smile through the tears. Because in the end, war isn't just about battles fought, it's about promises kept. It's about courage that doesn't fade when the shooting stops. And it's about love, the kind that survives even the silence. Dash dash dash. As the camera fades to black, Sarah's voice echoes one last time. Heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes, they wear fur, and leave paw prints on your soul. Dash dash dash. Thank you for watching USA Battle Zone. If this story moved you, share it, let others know that not all heroes walk on two legs. And remember, behind every soldier, there's a story. Behind every story, there's a heart. Like, comment, and subscribe for more true, emotional stories of bravery and sacrifice. Until next time, stay safe, stay strong, and never forget the ones who never came home.